Here's what you can expect on NTV Weekend Edition.
Tonight, the country mourns 10 pupils.
The doctors are here with me, and they've informed me that the 2 are out of danger, but they're still seriously ill.
Mwingi accident death toll rises with driver of the truck involved in the fatal crash expected in court on Monday. Also tonight, a village gripped by fear. DCI officers deployed to investigate gruesome murder in Kericho.
This is goal for Kenya!
And a good day in the office for Team Kenya. Kenyan athletes win 6 gold medals on the final day of the 21st Africa Athletics Championships in Asaba, Nigeria.
Tukiwa furaha, si mlituona? Lakini sasa hapo katikati, Bentani ambaye hata hajui kazi hiyo tulianzisha namna gani.
Nasa hawa! Nasa uhuru!
Also tonight, we speak with ANC leader Mudavadi on the handshake, future of NASA and the state of the nation.
Kuondoka kwa NASA ni lazima vyama vitatu vyote viseme vimejiondosha.
Musalia, Macharia. Macharia ni mtu wa kutafuta.
Well, I hope you're having an inspiring Sunday. My name is Olive Burrows and our sign language interpreter tonight is Flora Tieno. But that's not all. On the other side of studio is Trevor Ombija, standing by with Honorable Musalia Mudavadi for that much anticipated interview. You can watch that interview and the rest of this bulletin on our NTV Kenya YouTube channel and on the NTV Kenya Facebook page. But we start on a somber note. 10 pupils have died and 7 others and a matron are admitted in different hospitals after the school bus was rammed by a truck and plunged into River Kanginga near Mwingi town last night. 8 pupils died on the spot, while 1 died on the way to hospital and another passed on while receiving treatment. NTV's Sharon Baranga reports.
Pupils and teachers from St. Gabriel's Academy in Kitui aboard this ill-fated bus were only 3 kilometers away from their destination in Mwingi, Kitui County. The journey had started from Mombasa, where they were on a trip, and a few minutes to midnight, the worst happened. The bus was hit on the right-hand side by a truck. It then rolled several times before coming to a halt here on the dry riverbed of River Kanginga. 8 pupils died on the spot, another one died on the way to hospital, and another one succumbed while receiving treatment. The injured pupils and a matron are being treated at Mwingi Level 4 Hospital, Kenyatta National Hospital, and Nairobi Hospital. Some of those transferred to Nairobi suffered multiple fractures.
We have 23 children now who are successfully treated and discharged home, whereas we have 3 who are recuperating in our wards with fractures and others who have soft tissue injuries. They are currently stable, and as of this morning.
The school bus was carrying 44 passengers, 40 students, 3 teachers and a matron at the time of the accident. 6 pupils had been dropped off to their homes before the accident. 26 survivors were checked and treated at Mwingi Level 4 Hospital. 23 were treated and discharged.
The doctors are here with me, and they've informed me that the 2 are out of danger, but they're still seriously ill, and they're being moved to the wards.
At their school, the St. Gabriel's community is still trying to come to terms with news of the tragic crash. The driver of the truck has been arrested and is set to be arraigned in court tomorrow.
They are at home. These are borders. Some of them are borders. We leave them in your hands, and just be cautious. Just follow the rules. If it's 6, let it be 6. If the bus should be painted yellow, paint it yellow, for heaven's sake. But I like what they've done with the painting the buses yellow, because it's bright and people can see when they're driving at night. But the fact that this driver was driving past 6, I don't know. I have no words.
I also pray for those who are deceased, and I pray for those people who are injured to get quick recovery.
Kitui Central OCPD Mudhuri Mongera said the truck driver drove off from the accident scene. He was arrested 15 kilometers from the scene. The pupils left their school on Tuesday for an educational trip in Mombasa. They were in two buses, one belonging to St. Gabriel Academy and the other one had been hired from neighboring Gutani Secondary School. President Uhuru Kenyatta and Kitui County Governor Charity Ngilu are among leaders who condoled with the families that lost children in the accident and at the same time wished the injured quick recovery. Sharon Baranga, NTV.
Parents and teachers of St. Gabriel Boarding Primary School are trying to come to terms with that accident that claimed the lives of 10 of the 92 pupils who traveled for a recreational trip to Mombasa. Charity Mwangi was in Mwingi and brings us the story of the accident that happened meters from their destination on their return journey.
The journey from Mombasa had started as early as 8 in the morning Saturday, and through it all, the parents of Joy Wamboi were on the phone with their daughter and her teachers, if only to monitor the journey so as to plan on where to pick up Wamboi.
Unfortunately, walitumia njia ingine different yenye alafu ikawa usiku. So the teacher insisted they have to go back to the school so the parents can pick the students from the school.
That wasn't to be because along the way, just minutes from the school, a lorry collided with one of the two buses ferrying them. The silence that followed was unsettling for Wamboi's parents as they sensed that all was not well all the way from their home in Thika.
Vile tumekuja shuleni ndio tukaambiwa msichana wangu ambaye ni kati ya wenye walikuwa wameenda trip, ni kati ya wenye walikuwa waliadhiriwa. Sasa ndio maana tukaambiwa tuje hapa hospitali, tumekuja tumeidentify. It was a tragic accident, manake so painful.
Nursing his bruises at the school, one of the teachers tells us of the events before the accident that informed their late travel.
Tulikuwa tunarudi nyumbani. Kwa hivyo kidogo ule wakati tuliona hata kama ni tumechelewa, maana yake ni kwenda sasa nyumbani. Tujaribu tufike.
Wamboi was the firstborn and now the parents of two are mourning the life cut short and aspirations that will never be realized.
And actually we talked just before they went to school for the trip. And she told me, Daddy, this time round I've performed 356 marks and I've become position 10. And I'm happy because that's what we had agreed.
For Deborah Mutua, hers is a different story, as her daughter was lucky enough to have escaped death, albeit with minor injuries.
Ile ripoti nilikuwa nimepata niko kwa nyumbani ni kwamba hakuwa anapatikana kwa wale walikuwa wanaonekana. Kwa hivyo wakati huo nilikuwa tu namulilia Mwenyezi Mungu angalau anijalie kumuona akiwa hata kama atakuwa kiwete.
Teachers tell us that it will be quite a challenging time for the school fraternity to prepare for the national exams.
Wengi wale walituacha ni wa darasa la 8 ni candidates. Imenipiga sana kama mzazi. Sitaki kuendelea.
Most of the pupils who are involved in the accident here in Mwingi have been discharged, save for 3 who are still recuperating here at the Mwingi Level 4 Hospital. 4 of them were transferred to Kenyatta National Hospital and the Nairobi Hospital. Charity Mwangi, NTV.
The Traffic Act 2017 stipulates a motor vehicle designated for transporting children to or from school or for any non-school related activity when they're in a group shall not operate between the hours of 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. The Act goes on to say that anyone who contravenes this section commits an offence and shall be liable to a fine not exceeding 30,000 shillings or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 months or to both. Early this year, in the month of January, the then acting Education Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i issued a directive that school buses were only allowed to operate between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. The ill-fated bus started its journey around 8 a.m. on Saturday. It went through Kibwezi, then Kitui, and was on its way to Mwingi when the accident happened on the Thika-Garissa road. There are bound to be questions on whether all supervising adults on board were in agreement about the travel at that late hour, which is outlawed. And there are bound to also be questions about whether there were police roadblocks along the route and why they allowed the buses to carry on with the journey that late into the night. Kitui County Governor Charity Ngilu and Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka visited injured pupils in hospital shortly after visiting the scene of the accident that led to the loss of 10 lives in Mwingi. The leaders visited the pupils who are receiving treatment at Mwingi Level 4 Hospital. Kalonzo pointed out the lack of signage on the road, especially when there is ongoing work on the highway, so that it can warn drivers using the route.
Ingawaji wanasema ajali haikingiki, lakini ajali ambayo inachukua maisha watoto wachanga na kuleta hofu ya aina hii ni jambo ambalo halikubaliki. Ordinarily, if you're doing major road works on a highway like Thika Garissa Road, you need at least to warn the drivers. It may be necessary to establish whether there was any signage to say road works ahead.
It is painful to the parents and to all of us, and truly we pray God to give the families, the Catholic fraternity, and the people of Mwingi and Kitui County strength and fortitude to bear the pain of losing their loved ones.
From that somber story to one on Kenya's strong showing in Nigeria. It was a super Sunday for Kenya at the 21st edition of the Africa Athletics Championships in Asaba, Nigeria, with Team Kenya athletes harvesting 6 gold medals to take Kenya's final gold medal to 11. Veteran walker Samuel Gadhimba got the gold rush underway when he defended his men's 20-kilometer walk title. 3,000-meter steeplechase world record holder Beatrice Chepkoech then led compatriots Celifine Chespol and Fancy Cherotich in taking the first 3 positions. Edward Zakayo, who bagged bronze at the Commonwealth Games, then showed his pedigree, storming to a win in the men's 5,000 meters final. World champion Elijah Manangoi then piped compatriot Timothy Cheriot to gold in the men's 1,500 meters race. Julius Yego then silenced his critics with a 3rd African gold medal in javelin, and Kenya closed the championship in style, winning the 4x400 meters men's race, which was the last race of the continental showpiece.
African Senior Athletics Championship, and it's the Kenyans who get one last uhuru, one last cause for rejoicing.
Police have deployed more detectives to investigate recent bizarre killings in Bureti constituency, Kericho County. The latest, a brutal murder of a Form 1 student by unknown people on Friday night, has sparked protests among locals. Energy CS Charles Keter led a team of government officials to the scene of the latest murder, urging the residents to stay calm until the perpetrators are brought to book. NTV's Zainab Ismail with more.
Fear has gripped this village in Bureti, Kericho County. A team of 5 criminal investigators dispatched by the Inspector General of Police arrived in the constituency to investigate and resolve the mysterious murders of 3 people. The team was received at Getarwet village by Energy Cabinet Secretary Charles Keter after residents held day-long protests on Saturday.
We will provide the security. We want watu walale kwa amani, watu wafanye kazi yao kwa amani. Nchi yetu tunataka hii maneno ikwishe. Tumeongea na ndugu yangu Matiangi na tumekubaliana au wakimaliza kazi yao tutakuja tufanye mkutano Bureti.
Hundreds of residents took to the streets on Saturday to protest the killing of a Form 1 boy by unknown people Friday night. Elias Kibet was found dead with cuts on his neck and head and some body parts still missing in his residence behind their family shop.
Mtoto mwingine alikuja nyumbani kukuja kutafuta chai, mimi namwambia kuna sukari, akarudi kuchukua sukari. Akakuja nikisikia huyo mtoto anaweka nini nduru, akakuja na akasema Elias amekufa.
The investigators also proceeded to Chesingoro village, where Cheburgoi High School teacher Willie Sang and his wife Evelyn were murdered 2 weeks ago. The murder of the couple, who left behind 5 young children, is yet to be resolved. Keter appealed to area residents with information which could lead to the arrest of the murderers to volunteer it to the new sleuths with a view to stopping the killings. Tension, however, remains high in this area as residents come to terms with the murders. Zainab Ismail, NTV.
A key government agency mandated to issue importation licenses for food products is on the spot for failing to revoke licenses for a number of companies that were implicated in the 2015 sugar crisis. The unscrupulous traders were also beneficiaries of the 2017 duty-free sugar importation that led to the influx of contraband and contaminated sugar in the country. NTV's Seth Olale also reports that a major showdown looms in the National Assembly, the venue of debate on the sugar report this week, amid intense lobbying spearheaded by conflicting interests.
Agriculture Food Authority, AFA, a government agency which falls under the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock, did not withdraw the licenses of companies implicated in the 2015 sugar crisis that hit the country. As a result, some of the companies illegally participated and benefited from the importation of duty-free sugar in 2017. The importers were Zanico East Africa Limited, Kenafric Industries, Stantwave Limited, Mishale Commodities, and Rising Star Commodities Limited. In addition, the new report, which was tabled last Wednesday and expected for debate this week, faulted South Nyanza Sugar Company, Sony, for tax evasion amounting to 2.5 billion shillings after importing 50,500 metric tons of sugar 6 days past the expiry gazette notice of duty-free sugar importation. The report recommends that 14 companies which benefited from the controversial extension of a gazette notice allowing duty-free sugar importation refund Kenya Revenue Authority over 10 billion shillings tax that was not paid at the time.
Honorable order. This is the National Assembly, not the County Assembly of Kisumu.
As Parliament prepares to debate the final report on the floor of the House this week, a committee member in the Joint Parliamentary Committee has told NTV that heightened lobbying spearheaded by interested parties is underway. The parties include some cabinet secretaries, government agencies and importers who have been implicated in the report but want it either amended or rejected by legislators in order to be absolved from blame.
The House Business Committee will give up that report the necessary priority time for it to be debated next week. So anybody who has an issue, whether to amend it, whether to support it, whether to oppose it, every member of Parliament has an opportunity once the House Business Committee decides on the fate of that report.
Despite being in 26 sittings since the Joint Parliamentary Committee investigating the sugar debacle was formed in June, the committee is yet to complete its work, and this is because a section of committee members want changes made in the final draft and report that was tabled in Parliament last week. Seth Olale, NTV, Nairobi.
Deputy President William Ruto says the opposition's new affinity for government will not translate into power sharing. Speaking in Mudavadi, Nyeri County, the Deputy President said the focus should be on delivering on President Uhuru Kenyatta's Big Four agenda and not the appeasement of opposition converts with government posts. His sentiments were echoed by Kiharu Member of Parliament Ndindi Nyoro, who together with Nyeri Governor Mutahi Kahiga, Gatundu South MP Moses Kuria, Deputy Senate Speaker Kithure Kindiki, Nyeri Senator Ephraim Maina, Mathira MP Rigathi Gachagua, and Anthony Kiai of Murukweni constituency set their expectations for the pact entered into by opposition leader Raila Odinga and President Kenyatta. It is not the first time the DP has categorically ruled out a power-sharing deal or a change of electoral law, having first done so in the immediate aftermath of last year's presidential polls when there was a clamor for structured dialogue in the interest of peace.
Na wale wote ambao
wanashirikiana na sisi, wajue ya kwamba watakuja kushirikiana na sisi kufanya mambo ambayo inawafaidi wananchi.
The Pokot and Tugen communities in Baringo County held prayers in Kapturo in Batwarba ward to mark peace celebrations between the two communities. This comes after a year of volatility, which saw an area chief killed just 2 kilometers from where the deputy president was addressing a gathering on a visit in the county.
Prayers, anointing oil and the slaughter of cows, a one-of-a-kind celebration it was between members of two communities. Each community showcasing its culture through song and dance, back to the message of peace and hope.
Tumechinja ng'ombe hapa, ng'ombe ndume wawili. Hii ni ishara ya kwamba hii kitu imeisha, kwa sababu kumwaga damu mara kwa mara ni kuonyesha ya kwamba watu wetu wametakaswa siku ya leo.
The long-term conflict culminated in the killing of an area chief 10 kilometers away from a rally that Deputy President William Ruto was addressing in the area in the month of February 2017, which saw the deployment of police to curb the menace.
Na sisi tunawaambia askari, muhalifu ambaye amekuja akaiba ng'ombe, akapiga risasi mama, akaua mtoto, pia na yeye apigwe risasi.
Baringo Senator Stanley Kiptis urged residents to focus on development by taking their children to school and shun cattle rustling.
Hii mambo ya cattle rustling imelituweka chini sana. Kwa kusema kweli, hata nyinyi wenyewe msidanganya. Mtoto ya Tiatei ameumia. Mtoto ya Mtugen ameumia. Mtoto ya Aljames ameumia. Mtoto ya Torres ameumia. Mtoto ya Baringo amefanya nini? Ameumia kwa sababu ya hii.
The governor's wife, Ivy Kiptis, urged parents and especially mothers to speak to their children at an early age to avoid engaging in practices that are outdated. As in Tiati, women are known to be among the inciters when it comes to cattle rustling, and if a man does not raid, he is perceived to be unworthy to marry. Helen Aura, NTV.
We take a short break now, but coming up, as promised, that interview with Musalia Mudavadi.
thank you so much for staying with NTV Weekend Edition. Before we get into that discussion with ANC leader, NASA founder Musalia Mudavadi, who's already with me in studio. Remember, the hashtag is Mudavadi on NTV. Our Twitter handles at NTV Kenya, Instagram at NTV Kenya, Facebook, everywhere else at NTV Kenya. We'd like to hear your sentiments and your questions as well. Olive Burrows is sampling some of them as we speak. We'll be asking them directly to him for a direct response. And thank you so much for making time for us, sir.
Thank you so much.
Before we get into the political discussion, what are your sentiments about the Mwingi accident? Kenya is currently mourning 10 pupils, considering there's also a traffic act that the vehicles should not move between 6 and 6 p.m., but the accident happened at 3 a.m.
Yes, first of all, it's a very tragic incident, and at the very outset, I must convey my condolences to the families of the bereaved and those who have been injured following this accident. And my take on this is that we should abide by the law. And when students are traveling at that late hour, it's too late, the driver is tired, everybody's exhausted, maybe they were all dozing, so anything could have happened. Yeah. And I think the message that comes out here is that people should stick to the law, and particularly those who are charged with the responsibility of taking care of our children, and particularly vehicles that are the public service vehicles.
All right. Yeah. Let's talk about the handshake politics. And before we get into that, listen to this.
Was the meeting a culmination of the dialogue NASA has been agitating for? The answer is no. The two repeatedly invoke their names and personally commit to each other and not to all Kenyans.
You also have been quoted as saying that the agreement was a two-man agreement. Has your position changed?
Let me put it this way. Just looking at that clip, it must be very clear that the handshake was a total surprise. Okay? I had no clue about it. We were not aware it was going to happen. So it was an absolute surprise to those of us within the NASA coalition. Be that as it may, I think we must look at the issue this way, that the initial angle to it was that it is two people, they meet, and then they make their meeting public. And a thing like this does not just happen overnight. It means that there must have been some conversations prior to that particular date, which I was not privy to. All right? And I still maintain that we should not now waste too much time looking at that handshake. I think what we should be looking at is the future of Kenya. Because if the handshake brings the tranquility that we need to be able to resolve our issues as a nation properly, then so be it. But now we must look at it and say, what else is required? Is the process that is the consequence of this handshake, is it all-inclusive? Is it broad? Or does it remain shrouded in mystery and confined to the direction and whims of two people? Yeah. This is what we must now ask ourselves as Kenyans.
As the NASA co-founder and also co-principal, do you support this handshake? Having said that it was a surprise, do you support it now?
You know, dialogue is important and it's desirable at all times. And indeed, even before the handshake, those of us who would spend time looking at the future of Kenya, and in this context, the co-principals of NASA, we were very clear that it was necessary that the country engages in dialogue, because we did not want to go back to a scenario like the 2007-2008 situation. So dialogue is desirable. But the context in which the dialogue is held, the format in which it is held, is also absolutely important. And how broad is it in terms of public participation? Yeah. These are the essential issues that will make this a constructive engagement. Yeah. And to that extent, I still say that I'm looking forward to seeing genuine constructive engagement that is broad-based.
You still haven't answered me directly though. Do you support it or not?
For purposes of bringing tranquility I think it is important that people cool their tempers and they shake their hands. So to that extent, the handshake has achieved something. But it is the bigger picture that we all must now be vigilant for.
Yeah. And what would you envision as the bigger picture for you? Because people say there's a Building Bridges initiative that has been formed. What do you reckon would be a successful picture?
I think a successful picture here would be a situation where we see a serious resolve and serious solutions to some of the issues that challenge us. You must remember that in 2007-2008, there was a handshake after the Kofi Annan led talks. There was a handshake on the same Harambee House stairs. And the whole world was watching at that time, just as it was watching this. Now, what happened after that? What was the unfinished business following that initial handshake that led to a situation where we are being forced to go through the same motions again? Now, to me, the issue of electoral justice must be seriously and genuinely dealt with.
Yeah.
Even as we speak now, that handshake in 2007 and 2008 was a consequence of a bungled electoral process. What we are seeing here is also a handshake that is propelled by an equally controversial electoral process. So clearly, the 5-year period, what was identified as the cause of this kind of tension has not been resolved. And as we speak today, the institution that is called the IEBC is in shambles. It's riddled with corruption. They are taking each other to court. And 1 year has lapsed since the last election, and we are not seeing a serious effort to resolve the issues surrounding the IEBC.
So having said all that, do you then reckon the handshake will achieve anything?
I would say that the jury is out. Yeah. Let's give them the benefit of doubt. But let me speak from a NASA perspective. What were the issues that we believe ought to be dialogued by Kenyans? One is the electoral justice issue that I've talked about, the fight against corruption, the all-inclusive governance structure that we ought to have. We have to consolidate devolution. And finally, but not least, we also must make sure that there is sufficient and adequate security in our country to propel and buttress economic growth. So these were key principles that were part of and still remain very, very essential to the NASA dream.
Of which most of them have not even been achieved. IEBC is still exactly the way it was despite the resignation.
In fact, in all seriousness, we do not even have to wait for the process of the handshake or the building of the Bridges initiative to come to a conclusion, to realize that addressing, for instance, the IEBC should be a thing that should just be taken up immediately.
How do you reckon that should be done then? Because even as we speak, the NASA team doesn't seem to be seeing eye to eye on this.
No. I think on the need to reform the IEBC, I think everybody is very clear on that. And that does not require a long wait. These are issues that if we are committed to national dialogue, we should be able to start engaging immediately. Whether it is within the context of the parliamentary committees, whether it is within the ruling party itself, and even more, even between the discussions of the Jubilee and the opposition. This should be dialogue that we can engage while we even look at other things that are pending.
Yeah. Even as you say you are going to engage that dialogue, Wiper leaders also mentioned that they'll be supporting the government. Watch this first.
Nikaambia Uhuru, tiko tayari tukuje pamoja kama tunaweza kudeal na mambo haya. Na unaona ile katika MOU tumeandika ukabila, ubaguzi, umaskini, ufisadi, wizi wa kura, usalama, na yote imekuja 9 points. Tulikubaliana hii tukiweza kufanya tutakuwa tumebadilisha Kenya.
So despite that statement by ODM leader, Wiper leaders also mentioned that they will be supporting the government henceforth. What is ANC's position on this?
First of all, let me put it very clearly that ANC is committed to the cause of opposition. A good democratic society must have those that are in government, and it must also have a vibrant opposition. So as ANC, our position first is that we must not abscond our role as the opposition. Now, the second point, just to come now directly to your point, is that if the government is doing something good, like we are seeing some impetus around the war against corruption, all right, then we must encourage them to do that and to fight it aggressively. Yeah. That becomes something that we can have a meeting of minds on. There are economic policies or programs that could be sensible, and they could perhaps dovetail into what we also think. We can support them on that. But we should not do it at the expense of killing the opposition. And I think we must just look outside the African continent for a while. And allow me to elaborate on this. There has been the debate around the Brexit. Yeah. And you'll remember that the Conservatives on this one actually worked with Labour before Cameron resigned. Mm-hmm. They were all campaigning for Britain remaining in the EU. And there was a section of the British that looked differently. And when the referendum came out, the majority was for the exit. But insofar as the Labour was supporting the Conservative, or they voted together on this, Jeremy Corbyn did not abandon his role as the Labour or as the opposition. And equally, we must make it very clear here that even as you go, as Theresa May still struggles to try and deal with the Brexit consequences. Yeah. On some of the issues, the Labour are still voting with Theresa May on some of those things.
But do you reckon ODM and Wiper abandoned their mission as the opposition?
They have not said so, but it is up to them to clarify their position. But as far as I'm concerned, there is no harm in us coming to common ground on some particular issues. But I want to make it very clear to the people that it would also be a very disastrous thing for us to abandon the opposition role.
You're a NASA co-principal, and you say that it's not clear whether they've abandoned their opposition role or not. Is there some level of push and pull within NASA?
Yes, there are some challenges in NASA, and I think we'll come to that
you can
further down.
You can delve into it even now.
But there are some challenges because when we formed the coalition, the issues and our coalition document is still intact. And for the benefit of all the listeners here, let me make it clear that for anybody to exit NASA, you would have to write to the Register of Political Parties and also notify the sister parties within the coalition. So far, no party has done that out of the founding parties. Now, in addition to that, for NASA to come to an end, then 3 of the founding parties ought to exit. Again, that has not happened. But we have challenges in NASA, challenges that stem from the build-up to not necessarily to the build-up to the elections, but more so after the elections, and how we are going to move into the future. Now, those challenges can be surmounted.
Do you reckon it's going to hold NASA? Because you say that 3 parties have to withdraw. ODM has mentioned that they will be working with government. Wiper has done the same thing. Ford Kenya is also heading in a different direction. You're the only one who still hasn't mentioned what you're up to.
I think I've mentioned it, that the ANC strongly believes that we must have opposition in place.
But will NASA hold together?
It is something that I want to struggle to ensure that it holds. And that requires the goodwill of the other NASA members.
Are you getting it?
We are going to get it. We talk. And we are going to work towards building it, because the dreams of NASA, which I hold so dear, are so pertinent to the well-being of this country. And it would be a serious act of betrayal on us in NASA if we walked away from that dream and left our supporters in the wilderness. So we should not do that.
All right, let's bring in some viewers here who are tweeting in, and Olive Burrows has some questions for you on Twitter. Olive?
Well, if you've been tweeting, you'll have the opportunity to ask Musalia Mudavadi a few questions yourself. And we have one here from Mike Mutambo, whose first question is, does Musalia Mudavadi support the handshake? I believe Trevor has gotten round to that. His second question is, why is he silent on the sugar scandal and various corruption issues? We also have a question from Felix Okonjo, who wants to know, what is the fate of NASA after all the principals pulling in different directions, and which political direction is Musalia giving Kenyans? And we have a few comments from another Frank, this time from Frank Ngati, and he says the opposition died a long time ago before the handshake. Mudavadi, welcome to the government, and work for all Kenyans, welcome. And a final comment from a gentleman describing himself as Governor the Dreamer. He says Mudavadi has played politics very softly and has missed so many opportunities. Again, that is NTV Kenya on Facebook and NTV Kenya on Twitter.
All right, keep the tweets coming in at NTV Kenya. The hashtag is Mudavadi on NTV, and there's several issues that have been asked there, mostly about corruption. We'll get into the corruption in just a bit, but a question asked by Frank directly is that is the opposition dead? Which is something that has also been mentioned by one of the co-principals.
No, the opposition is not dead. And I think it's the format of the opposition that Kenyans maybe need to get to terms with. You can convey your message. You can have your position. You could also be belligerent and violent in the way you express your position. I think for too long, Kenyans have been seeing what you might see as a violent approach to opposition. And in their minds, or in the minds of very many, they have tended to think that that is the role of opposition. No, it's not. And I've just given you the example of the Labour Party in the UK, and there's the Conservatives who are in power at the moment. Surely, are you telling me that you would be expecting to see Jeremy Corbyn throwing stones or running and blockading vehicles in the UK for you to know that there's an opposition? No, no, no.
But the opposition is also expected to check the government.
Precisely.
Most of them have already said that they'll be working with
precisely.
the government. How are they going to do their
we are supposed to check the government. And to check it must be through civilized communication. Parliament is there. And it's the role of the NASA parliamentarians not to forget their role. It is actually sad when you hear some of the NASA members of parliament saying that they are already in government. They are not. Legally, they are not. And they should know this. So it is very sad when you hear some of them saying that. So the opposition must continue to play its role. And that's why I said we should not abscond. They must be in parliament. They must scrutinize the budget. They must be able to talk about the ills in our society. And they must be able to recommend serious alternative solutions.
Do you reckon the former Prime Minister is absconding his role as opposition leader, now that you keep bringing up the issue of absconding roles?
I think what we are seeing here is that we are seeing a Raila that is operating now perhaps from a very different perspective. Very different in the sense that we all know now there's no room for belligerent politics globally and in the country. That is something that is beginning to suffer its own problems. We have to have a different approach. And I think Raila is also having challenges in dealing with this new approach to opposition. But be that as it may, I am not here to speak for him. He will do that in his own time when he thinks it's appropriate. But we must also make it very clear, and I want to repeat this, let us not pretend to be scrambling to the government. or trooping to the government. The reality is that Jubilee has enough numbers in Parliament to conduct their business. But they need the goodwill of the opposition to govern the country. There are two distinct issues here.
Would you have done it differently?
About
Raila, you say that you let not all of you troop into government, and you're saying now he has challenges in there. Would you have done it differently?
No, I've said that we should not troop into government, and I hope nobody is trooping into government. In fact, Trevor, there's been a rumor that there's a government of national unity.
We are getting
in the offing.
Yeah.
Okay, when we get there, I'll make my remarks to it.
Okay.
But I just want to make it very clear that strengthening democracy in this country and serving the people of Kenya means that we have to take our specific roles seriously. And as things stand now, Jubilee are in government. They are making their mistakes. We should not be party to those mistakes.
Okay.
All right? And we should be able to check them. Because when we went to the election, we went to the election with the full intention of winning the election and forming the government.
All right. Yeah. We'll get into that quest to form the government in just a bit. Let's take a short break in NTV Weekend Edition. Keep your questions coming at NTV Kenya on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. We'll sample some of them for a direct response from Mudavadi, who's with us here. The hashtag is Mudavadi on NTV. We'll be back in just a bit. Don't go too far. All right, thank you so much for staying with NTV Weekend Edition. Listen, we are still speaking to Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, who's the NASA founder and also ANC leader, just getting into the details of everything that's happening on the state of the nation. Keep your tweets coming in at NTV Kenya, on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram as well. The hashtag is Mudavadi on NTV. And Elizabeth is asking, what role is Mudavadi playing in making sure NASA parliamentarians don't forget their roles?
I think I'm in dialogue with quite a number of the NASA MPs, and I always remind them that please take your role seriously. We cannot be put in a situation where nobody is scrutinizing anything that is going through Parliament. And one of the recent things I engaged them a lot on was even this sugar debate. The contraband sugar,
yes,
and the damage to the lives of citizens, potential damage to the lives of citizens, and even to the economy of this country, and the factories that provide a lot of livelihood to many farmers and young men and women in the sugar growing belts. And I indicated to them that frankly speaking, if we have to get to the root bottom of this, we need to have a serious scrutiny into what transpired. And that is why I kept on agitating for an independent judicial commission of inquiry in this area, so that we can get to the root cause of it. Because my feeling, and I think we are being vindicated, is that there's so much conflict in the relevant committees of Parliament because partisan interests have really accessed the corridors of Parliament. And we may not be doing justice to the nation when it comes to dealing with some of these issues. And the fight against corruption, for instance, should not be a witch hunt. It should be a process. Everybody must get a fair hearing, and then conclusions are made.
Okay.
And I've been engaging them to say that let us tackle these things seriously, because that is what will make the difference between the opposition and those in government.
Okay. And what is your relationship with the former Prime Minister, Raila Odinga? Are you in talking town?
Yes, yes. Including last night, we had a conversation on phone. Yeah. So we talk. As I said, we have our challenges, but I've always maintained, and I've told him, and I keep on telling him that I reserve the right to a different opinion just as much as he deserves a right to a different opinion. Sometimes there could be a convergence and sometimes not. But what is important is for us to engage constructively and truthfully in all the things that we do. And I'm committed to doing that. And my hunch is that he is committed to doing that, so that we can move forward and we can also send the right signals to the opposition. Because we have to admit to a certain extent that as the NASA core principles, we are sending conflicting signals to our members and to our MPs. We should not personalize the activities that are going on. That is perhaps the folly that we may be going through as NASA, to the extent that our members of Parliament, whether they're from ODM or ANC or Ford Kenya or Wiper Democratic Party, some of them are conflicted because they want us to define the challenges to identify the challenges we are going through and come to a common position on how to deal with them. Now that is still elusive. I don't want to hide. But it's when you acknowledge that there's an issue that you find a solution.
All right. And those issues that you're talking about, I'm assuming this is towards the handshake?
This is towards how we are going to build sufficient trust amongst ourselves. We must work towards reconstructing the trust. Where trust has been breached, let us work towards reconstructing it. And that is what will make a difference for NASA.
All right. And we still have more questions coming through, and Olive Burrows has more of them at NTV Kenya, on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram as well. The hashtag is Mudavadi on NTV. Keep the questions coming. Olive?
All right, your questions and your comments are coming in fast and furious. As Trevor said, the hashtag is Mudavadi on NTV. And yes, you can reach us on NTV Kenya on Twitter and NTV Kenya on Facebook. Okay, here's one comment from Collins Musanga, who says, who feels that Mudavadi is being non-committal on many issues. You're either in the government or in the opposition. Why is he coiling around? That is Collins Musanga. We have Alfred Lagat, who says, what is the future of ANC? Will you go for the top seat? We also have a comment from Mzalendo Tomkin Baraza, who asks again, will Mudavadi vie for president in 2022, or will he support Wetangula or Ruto? We have Joseph Kangola, who says, we have heard many conflicting versions of what happened on the 30th of January. Please shed light on this. Is the Nigerian number story true? Is it true that you are a walking distance from Uhuru Park? What exactly happened? That again, of course, is in reference to the swearing in of opposition leader Raila Odinga. Trevor Ombija, engineer Kip Kem, wants you to ask Musalia Mudavadi if he expects the NASA coalition agreement of Raila Odinga not vying again to hold. And then just two more. There is Samuel Mwishigi, who says some of us think Raila is opposition and the position of opposition ended during the handshake. That is the view of Samuel Mwishigi. And then we have Fred June, who says, Mheshimiwa, please be clear. Do you support the handshake?
All right, Olive, thank you so much for those questions. Keep them coming in and we will try and answer some of them directly. There's been a lot on the handshake issue. They want a clear yes or no answer, and you delved into that earlier on. And then there's also the issue of whether you're running in 2022. But before we get into that, let's get a soundbite from President Uhuru Kenyatta sometimes back on the issue of backing each other and playing politics. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Tukiwa furaha, si mlituona? Lakini sasa hapo katikati, na ndio vizuri tuambiane ukweli. Right? Shetani ambaye hata hajui kazi hiyo tulianzisha namna gani. Wanakuja wanasema sasa unajua sasa nyinyi mkienda hivyo mmejitangaza, unajua sasa wazungu hawatatupatia pesa.
What went through your mind at that particular point? Because it felt like you were betrayed by President Uhuru, the current president. Now he wasn't at that particular point, and you were supposed to be supported by him. And then you had several meetings, and then this happened. What went through your mind at that particular moment?
Well, you see, in a matter like this, I've spoken about this issue before. Yeah. And I said, today this is water under the bridge. Frankly speaking, it's like one crying over spilt milk. As far as I'm concerned, this is history, and I think we need to move on, and Kenyans need to move on and move and look at the future. Uhuru is the president today. There are different issues he has to deal with. I'm in the opposition. I have my eyes on the 2022 general election for the presidency. That is where I'm going to focus on. But I'm not going to go into this historical aspect anymore, because it does not add any value whatsoever as to where we are going. If there are issues that Uhuru may want to elaborate on, because he talks of other issues that came to him, we've never discussed those issues. And I think it would be a waste of time to go back into that particular aspect.
So are you running in 2022?
I've said I am.
For president?
Yes.
Who will you choose as your running mate?
Now, I'll cross the bridge when we get there. That is something that I have to think about very carefully, very tactfully, and at the appropriate time, my running mate will be known.
So are you going to run this as a NASA or on your own? Are you forming a different party?
I think what is important is that people must also look at a situation where we have been, where I have been selfless. And to some extent, people tend to look at this and give the impression that we are not courageous and so forth. But you must remember that when you have an ideal, for instance, in 2002, I supported Uhuru. In 2007, I supported Raila, and equally in 2017, I supported him. The only time I've contested separately was 2013. So I have my ambitions for the presidency, but I also am an individual who has been selfless to the extent that if it is for a cause that is important for the country and for the people of Kenya, I have always built bridges in such circumstances. Now, this informs the idea of NASA. All right? NASA came up because I thought and I felt, after a lot of reflection, that unless we coalesce and form a formidable coalition, we are going to be mincemeat for the Jubilee party. And therefore we got together. And I did not go into NASA insisting that I should be the one who should be the candidate. We reflected, we debated, we spent a lot of nights debating, and we all agreed, let us back Raila at that time.
And what was the deal after that?
And he became our candidate. Yeah. Now, if you look at the coalition agreement of NASA, and according to our constitution, you have a president and his running mate. There was Raila and there was Kalonzo.
Did you envision 2022?
For my situation, I was supportive, all right, without even looking for any specific position. But I was supportive. Now, that is an act of also selflessness and commitment to a cause. Now, going into 2022, I'm not expecting to be paid or to be rewarded. No, I'm hoping, and I'm going to work towards persuading the majority of Kenyans to support my bid.
And what about the core party principles that you had? Because there's been talk that there's an ANC and Ford Kenya merger coming up. Is this in strategy?
You see, a coalition is as strong as the parties that make it. All right? And to me, a conversation of merger within the coalition parties is not a negative at all. If it happens, to me, it is even better in the sense that the parties are consolidating. And indeed, we are all spending a lot of time in our respective parties trying to strengthen and improve the structure and organizations of our parties. Because when we went into the coalition, there were challenges, which I may address a little bit going forward. So to me, don't look at the merger discussions as being negative. It's something in progress, and we must also make sure that we are bringing in other people on board. Yes.
And so now the main concern here is that what if they don't support you in 2022? Will you be getting new political realignments?
Politics is dynamic, and politics also calls for you making new friends. Okay? If you have to grow your numbers, that means you have to keep on adding people who did not support you to come on board and be supportive to you. So let us not look at it and say that if a core principle does not support you, then your ambition or your resolve to be a presidential candidate then ends because a core principle has not supported you.
And also one of the other things that came up is you missed the swearing in that happened in the Uhuru Park some times back. What was the real reason behind that? Because it's a question that has been asked by one of the viewers as well.
I spoke to this, I think, in your sister, your paper today, which is your sister entity. And I was very candid that the issue of the swearing in was something we debated thoroughly. We debated about the pros and cons of it. We even had a session in Manzoni. And my conviction, and I don't necessarily have to speak for the others, my conviction was that that process was not going to lead us anywhere. It was also unconstitutional. We had a situation where NASA has a former prime minister.
Yeah.
NASA has 2 former vice presidents. NASA has 2 former foreign affairs ministers. Now, you cannot be in a situation where we are saying in our coalition document that we believe in the rule of law and constitutionalism, and any change that comes must come through a constitutional process.
Okay.
So as a matter of principle, we had argued this debate, and there were those who were for it, and there were those who were not for it.
Okay.
But over and above that, I think Kenyans should know that this matter was even, there was also consultation with our international partners. A number of them. And I don't have to name names, but in one situation, we were confronted with one strong message, that NASA may have, and indeed has, legitimate concerns about electoral justice, about inclusivity in government, about the need to consolidate devolution, the need to compensate the victims of post-election violence, the need to fight corruption. All these things are valid. But the message was that if you engage in a parallel process of swearing in, your status changes. The capitals will no longer see you as Democrats, as people who believe in constitutionalism, but they'll see you as people who have chosen the road or path of warlords. We owe Kenyans a responsibility. If we are their leaders, it's not about the popularity or the populism.
Okay.
It is also about sending a message that we will rule when we get there through constitutional means, and we'll abide by the rule of law.
All right, we're running out of time here, but I want to sneak in one quick question on the fight against graft. Do you believe in it? Do you think it's going to achieve much?
So far, we have seen some interesting signals from President Uhuru, and we'd want to encourage him. I personally would want to tell him that move fast and deal with this issue, because it will negate his 4 pillars of his final term in office. So he has to do something about it. The pursuit around things like the lifestyle audit, he should quickly look at the legal framework, do something about it. We also need to see very quickly, not just the process of prosecution, but we need to see a more aggressive approach towards asset tracing and asset recovery. The institutions that fight corruption must be properly funded. Therefore, for instance, when we see Parliament dominated by Jubilee taking away 70% of the resources that ought to go to the judiciary, and that is a very important aspect in the fight against corruption, then you wonder, why are they giving on one side? Are they in sync with their leader? Are they in sync with the president? And yet they are the ones who are slashing the budget of the judiciary. Some of these things need to be dealt with. Going forward, we need to quickly look at issues where you can even have serious registers and create a law for it, where you have a register of not just the companies, but a register of the actual beneficiaries of those companies. In some countries, there are such registers. Because through such registers, we shall then be able to know who is the thief in chief.
All right. Thank you so much for making time for us. ANC leader and NASA founder Musalia Mudavadi speaking to us. The hashtag is Mudavadi on NTV. The conversation still continues on social media. We're taking a short break in NTV Weekend Edition. We'll be back with much more, including the sporting action.
YouTube channel as well as on NTV Kenya. Staying with the theme of the changing political climes, the political matrix at the coast is changing and new alliances are forging fast despite the fact that it's barely a year since the 2017 general election. At the heart of the change is the handshake or the ripple effects it has sparked in political circles. The shift is particularly felt at the coast, where several MPs have openly backed Deputy President Ruto's quest for the presidency in 2022 to the chagrin of their party ODM. The opposition party warned the errant MPs against their newfound political alliances, only to encounter a brick wall when Kilifi Governor Amason Kingi led the MPs in telling off ODM. NTV's Vincent Odwor examines the changing political environment at the coast.
Ever since the historic March 9th handshake between President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, the political ground has been shifting at the coast. Several area ODM legislators have openly flirted with Deputy President William Ruto politically.
We see now Raila came in sort of to replace, Ruto in the government. So he has to look for relevance elsewhere by coming very strong to the coast region. Of course, the genesis of all this is with the handshake, because the coast politicians are arguing that, look, we are working with William Ruto because, after all, our own party leader is working with the President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is the Jubilee Party
leader.
Unlike other coast leaders who are quietly supporting Ruto, former Raila allies like Malindi Member of Parliament Aisha Jumwa and several other area ODM legislators under the Coast Parliamentary Group led by their chairman Suleiman Dori have come out strongly to support Deputy President's 2022 presidential bid.
Tubadilishe formula basi. Na tukibadilisha formula, hatutaki tu kuwa katika serikali yoyote. Serikali ni ya William Samoei Ruto.
Tushikane na Ruto ama tuachilie? Mkono wa Ruto iko wapi tuone?
And generally the opposition is politically bankrupt. They are broke politically. They have nothing to offer to any political player as you speak. Because all they had was a promise. That promise has been exhausted.
I think the good is, yes, that the Deputy President is promising them, but also they feel that the ODM party does not seem to appreciate them as MPs from the coast.
A few weeks ago, ODM leadership wrote to Aisha Jumwa and Dori to show cause why they should not be punished. In a twist to events, 19 coast legislators seem to be warming up to Ruto's overtures, led by Kilifi Governor Amason Kingi, warned ODM against the move, terming it counterproductive.
The effect of this summons will have such serious, devastating political effect, especially at the coast. And therefore we hope that wisdom will ultimately prevail in this matter.
Ruto's coast excursions have politically separated close opposition friends Amason Kingi and Mombasa Governor, who is also ODM Deputy Leader Hassan Joho.
We have the camp that is supported by the President, Raila Odinga, and that includes Ruto. And we have another camp that is now supported by Ruto, Kingi, and now that would mean that you have to use many friends that were close to Joho to ensure that you have, shifted the support from ODM to the Deputy President's camp.
Vincent Odur, NTV.
We take another short break now, but when we come back, I'll be back with the sports and that war of words between US President Donald Trump and basketball star LeBron James.
Imperial Leather.
Welcome back. 11 goals were scored in the 5 Kenyan Premier League matches played on Sunday, with the highlight being AFC Leopards' hard-fought 2-1 win over Mathare United at the Machakos Stadium. Yvonne Isuza was the hero and villain for Ingwe as he scored and also received a red card. James Situma also had a similar script, causing a penalty and scoring the equalizer for the Slum Boys. Marvin Nabwire scored Leopards' winner, which sees them win twice on the trot to lie fourth as the Mathare United remain 7th. Sofapaka climbed back to second on the log following a 1-0 win over Ulinzi Stars. This as Sony Sugar thrashed Thika United 3-1. Nzoia Sugar drew 0-0 with Wazito, and visiting Zoo Kericho beat Kariobangi Sharks 2-1. Sergio Aguero scored both Manchester City goals as the English Premier League champions beat Chelsea to win the Community Shield, which is the traditional curtain raiser for the new season at Wembley. Aguero's first, his 200th goal for the club, came after 13 minutes when he collected the ball on the edge of the area after lively youngster Phil Foden had surged forward. His second came after the break when he latched onto Bernardo Silva's cross to score with another precise low finish. City have won the Community Shield for the first time since 2012, when they incidentally beat Chelsea, while Chelsea have now failed to win the Community Shield in any of their past 5 appearances. US President Donald Trump and basketball star LeBron James are embroiled in a spat that has boiled over on social media. Trump criticized CNN cable news host Don Lemon and his interview with LeBron. James has been very vocal about Trump and has previously said that Trump has emboldened racists in the United States and urged the country not to allow itself to be divided along racial lines. In September, James called Trump a bum on Twitter after the president withdrew a White House invitation to Warriors guard Stephen Curry.
I have this platform to let one individual, no matter the power, no matter the impact that he should have or she should have, ever use sport as a platform to divide us. The people run this country, not one individual, and damn sure not him. He doesn't understand the power that he has for being the leader of this beautiful country. He doesn't understand how many people.
I think Mossad Al-Dosari's competition name is MS Dosari. Apologize for that. That brings us to the end of NTV Weekend Edition. Again, if you'd like to watch and rewatch that interview with Musalia Mudavadi, you can do so on our NTV Kenya YouTube channel. We'd also appreciate your feedback on NTV Kenya on Facebook and Twitter, and as Trevor mentioned, on Instagram. It's been a lovely evening. I hope you enjoy the rest of your viewing.